Now, 6:04, and thank you for coming. Item number 1, consider approving the minutes from the July 23rd meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second motion.
All in favor? Next one is approval list of carry forward balance from fiscal year 2013-2014. And the result of the approved list from overdrafts combined amount is $3,592.41. Any comments you just want us to?
How does this compare to previous years?
As far as
The overdraft balance?
fewer than, like, I looked at last year and there were perhaps 4 departments that were, 4 operating areas that were overdrawn. So this is very, a small amount. And obviously, there are no operating departments that are in here, and there haven't been for several years.
Last year, I think it was 4,500 that we brought to your attention, so it's less. And it was occasioned mostly by a streetlight repair. We had, that was the bulk of 3,400, and it was $100 over at Memorial Hall.
Do we need to approve these with a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'd make a motion we approve these overdrafted amounts for $35,92.41.
Move second, all in favor? Thank you.
You wanna,
Sure. And then we have also presented you a list of potential balances to be carried forward into the next fiscal year. And a lot of these are on the list every year. There were a couple of requests, relatively small requests that the fire department made, one for $588 for the municipal fire safety grant match and $600 for pickup truck repair. And there was $15,450 unspent in the paving account that's been requested to be carried forward. And I think the other things are things that have been on this list a number of times before.
I'd make a motion we approve the potential carried forward balances.
Second motion.
All in favor? How's that done?
Very good.
The next thing, item number 3, consider adopting a policy for the department's use of municipal credit card.
this policy was one of the recommendations, or a policy, was one of the recommendations that the auditor made last year. As you probably recall, that our credit card did not have a policy for its use. Doug developed this policy by sampling other communities and customizing a policy that would work well for Oakland. You want to highlight that?
Sure. I did use a couple of sample credit card policies from other towns and wrote this based upon that, and wanted to keep something very simple, but that covered the key points of employees using the credit card, and and with this we would have an official policy on that instead of totally unofficial as we are now.
The credit card is issued to the finance director normally, right?
Well, I hold on.
You hold it.
Yeah.
That's why I wondered in D, after the word employee, if we'd want to put temporarily issued. So, because you do, if somebody has to use this, they temporarily give it to them, right? And they
Correct.
go use it, and they
Right,
give it
it's-
back
yeah.
to you.
Yep,
I didn't know if it made any sense or not,
right, because it's not something they
but
are.
issued to them
Right,
permanently.
exactly, correct, they're using it, they're holding on to it for that use and then returning, yeah.
So I wondered if we'd want to say temporarily to make somebody, so someday people would realize that we didn't issue credit
Yeah,
cards.
I think we could certainly do that.
Doug, is this something that you foresee being used a lot or infrequently, because that's the most expeditious way?
It's,
to do
it's,
something?
it's fairly infrequent. I would say it gets used perhaps 2 or 3 times a month. I think it's most commonly used when someone needs to make an online purchase for something. That's, you know, and if they're going to a store where we don't have an account. So it's relatively infrequent. I don't anticipate any increase in usage. At least, unless something changes.
So currently we're doing this,
Correct.
and do all employees, can all employees use it, or is it department heads? or-
Department heads.
And have they been giving you the vouchers, the purchase orders, receipts? that-
There's room for improvement there. Let's put it that way.
Because that's the thing that always is the bottleneck for you, is the person responsible to have all that paperwork in hand, and
Right, and I'm hoping that, having that in writing will, spur people to do a better job at that, because that has been a problem at times in the past.
so before you give them the credit card, they must show you something beforehand?
Well, no, but they would, once, let's say someone uses their credit card to make an online purchase, they would need to, and this would require them that day or the next day to turn in a purchase order to Peter, the town manager, for that purchase. And then of course, once that's approved, that would get, to be, passed off along to me.
But before you give them the credit card, they must have an idea of what they're looking to buy.
Yes.
So is it any paperwork that they give you prior to, or are they just going and searching for items and say, I've got to buy something, and
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say, I think that when it's used with the intent for a specific, to purchase a specific item. I think that people would do their research before they get to me as to what, exactly what they need to buy.
Like the police department buys ammo online.
Yes, that's an
And
example,
it's a
yes.
perfect example, because I know it, because he has to call up, and they don't take a PO, and you have to get it, so it's not a random buy, it would be exactly what he's using it for.
But most suppliers you have an account with, that, you do a lot of business with, you don't have to use a credit card.
Locally, yes, generally, yes.
Motion.
I'd make a motion, we accept this credit card policy and put it into our policy book.
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome.
Item number 4, conduct a second reading on proposed annual amendment for general assistance.
These changes were on the previous agenda. They represent the annual updates that the DHS puts out to municipalities, and my guess is all the towns in Maine are going through
Going
some
through the
of
same
the
thing?
exercise to amend their ordinances to stay in conformity with the state DHS requirements. If you don't adopt these, then you have to come up with something that you can defend the DHS, so most people accept the recommendations. This would be the second reading.
I'd make a motion, we accept this as our second reading of this change to the general assistance rules.
Move second, all in favor?
Hey, before we let Doug get away, can you just explain these 2 sheets you gave us?
Sure.
We should have them too. We had some more information in our packet here you gave us, Doug, that you didn't run over.
Right, well, that
I
was.
just- I guess the only thing I had is our fund balance is, our auditor recommends it would be 15% of our total general fund expenditure. Is that what they recommend? that we would have?
Yes, this is what,
And we're not-
yes,
We're not quite up to it.
we're not quite up to there yet.
Now, on that is, the numbers at the bottom of the page that we're talking about, right?
Yes,
It says unassigned fund balance 63013.
correct. Yeah,
So this is last year's.
right, because I don't have the information
For this year.
yet for this year.
So really, the shortfall from the auditor's recommendation, we were $55,000 short last year.
Correct.
From what
That-
they recommended we should have had.
Correct. And when she looks at the, financials for this year, that it'll be 15% of those general fund expenditures, which will be a higher number because they've increased since last
Do you
year.
have a feeling where we are yet, or is it too early?
I know it's higher primarily because the school budget went up compared to the previous
Yeah.
year, so, but I really am not sure exactly.
It's interesting, these figures were.
So we are gonna be putting some money back into it, but I'm not sure that it's going to cover the increase.
How do other municipalities fare in their percentage of expenditures in the fund balance? Is 15, 15 I'm sure is a number that they feel comfortable about, but do many towns actually get to that 15? Are we as well off or better off or not?
Well, I think we're probably pretty well off compared to other towns, because different auditors will make different recommendations. It'll be anywhere from like 1 month expenses, which would be 8.3%, to 2 months, which would be 16.6. And so our actual percentage was, I think it was about 14.4%. So that's pretty solid. I mean, we're not quite at the recommendation, but we're certainly in pretty decent shape.
And our auditors tend to be high in what the recommendation is.
Well, right, I mean, some go even a little bit higher than that, but that is higher than what some might recommend.
And I think you wouldn't have to travel very far to find examples all across the board, from towns that live hand to mouth to towns that are very well endowed. Indeed, some towns have a great deal of money on hand that they've accumulated through bequests or over the years. And some towns, they don't, they live very close. So Oakland's in a good position, some better and some worse.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item number 5, appoint representation for the KV Cog General Assembly.
This letter came just after the last council meeting, but we've got until August 22nd to reply. And Dana and Mark have represented Oakland on the KV Cog Council of Governments.
Do you think Dana and I could switch spots so that Dana could be the general representative?
Thought we did that last year.
Did we?
Yeah, I think so.
I know it doesn't make much difference, but
Yeah, I think we did that last year, Mike.
Council will probably make a motion to one effect or another, and
You said to go again?
Yeah,
Make a motion that we continue with Dana and Mark for representation in the KV Cog.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Next one is to talk about the renewal agreement between Studio One Dance for 2014-2015.
we receive a letter about this time each year from Scott Stevens, indicating his interest in continuing. And this letter indicates that it will be this 34th year. I don't know if all 34 years have been, he says in the Rental Memorial Hall, so apparently that's a pattern he'd like to continue for at least another one. And we've also accumulated a payment history here, which he's been 2 years at $400 per week. So it's been 2 years without an increase. Prior to that, it was 3 years, 4 years, I guess, at $372. And prior to that, there were smaller amounts. So it's always a question of whether you want to asking for an increase or not.
Have we had any increase in expenses there over the last year?
Well, of course, the cost of oil continues
Yeah,
to
that
beat
was
us.
another aspect.
This money nearly provides for the cost of maintaining or operating and maintaining Memorial Hall.
So is it available, it's available to other people to use it when he's not using it?
Correct, yep.
Don, I'm sorry.
And I guess I would probably support, if it's costing us more to heat it, to keep it electrified and those things, I think that probably should be passed on at least. And I know in the past, we've also said that we feel that he should continue to keep his rates affordable, that the people who are accessing it aren't paying more and more money each year as we're giving him, a good rate, I guess, on the rental space. And I don't know if we've done any studies as to how much more a month or a week it costs us to heat and electrify it now than it has 3 years ago.
The last couple of years, we've had pretty good bid prices on our oil. So as high as oil is, it's not that we've suffered greatly on increases. But what I do hope for that building is when gas becomes available to us at that location, that we can make a fuel savings, but that isn't likely to occur in the year that we're looking at right here.
If I remember right, he covers the most of our operating expenses at that building though. I mean, we need to keep it heated anyway, so the building doesn't deteriorate.
Exactly.
That's true.
And he covers the most of that cost, I
Yes,
think.
in fact, I looked at that, it's in the material that you have, and you can see on the revenue summary, the one-page line here, Memorial Hall rental, gotta find it here. Rentals, line 5481.
Yeah.
About halfway down the page, and we collected $12,950 on the building. So we go over on the summary expense to page 3 and say that the original expended amount for the building was $17,992. So we were collecting 13 against 18. Without him as a customer, we'd be carrying a whole
Right.
load, so.
I think, Don, last year you asked if, when we kept this the same, if we'd do it with a letter to him that he would not raise his rates to the students or something like that, didn't you?
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious, is that being
Yeah, I think so.
continuing, is that the way it actually is, and
We did ask for that, and he did comply. I don't know what his plans are for this year, we haven't touched on that.
You know, it says right here, and I think what he does is a great job, but it says right here, Studio One opens on September 8th Monday 2014 through May of 2015. But during the summer, he's in there all the time, he holds those summer intense dance programs. Does he not do that during the summer? See kids out there dancing? No?
No, I didn't, wasn't aware that he was in there this summer.
He
I
does
don't know.
have a couple of weeks that he works and he pays the same
Oh,
amount.
yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay.
No, I just didn't know that. Didn't know if he's using it all summer.
Isolated weeks, but yeah, he always.
I think he
does
does a
that.
great job. If we were charging the difference, it'd be $3.01 if he had it. No, it wouldn't, because he always does it for months. So, other than that.
I'd recommend we rent it to him for the same price, with the same thing that Don said last year, that we would hope that he would not increase. But I'd also like to know how many Oakland students he has. I wonder if that's something that he could furnish us. There's a lot of kids go up there. And I just wonder how many Oakland residents go there for his classes.
I'll find out.
In years past, we also passed along I believe, we also passed along the refinishing of the floor up on the stage, the hardwood floor. Has that ever been replaced, or is that still the original hardwood?
I think it's the original.
The original,
The original one?
Mm.
Been resurfaced a few times.
Yeah, and that was always, as if I recall right, it was always passed on to, he was the one that was doing the damage to it and whatnot, we'd refinish it.
He actually doesn't, he's not actually on the stage, they're actually on the floor,
They don't use the stage anymore?
no.
No.
Really?
He puts his stereo equipment in there, but you go by there and you see those kids dancing on the floor.
No kidding.
Yeah.
When my daughter was taking it, it was up on the stage.
Yeah, no, all right.
Oh, and I went there to my granddaughter's thing,
You
we
were
sat on the
dancing?
stage and I didn't dance.
Oh.
We sat on
You
the
danced
stage,
on
you know, the audience sat on the stage and the kids were on the floor.
Really?
Huh.
Change
Because
that
there were so
around then.
many of them.
Well, then they take care of the downstairs floor.
Yeah.
That's a lot bigger.
So your motion was what?
I make a motion, we rent it to him at the same price and with the stipulation that we'd like to see him not increase to the students.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to the manager's report.
I gave you a summary of the nomination papers that Jan had prepared. And you'll see that there is a council vacancy, 3 budget advisory vacancies, and 2 RSU 18 vacancies. I understand that there has been some interest and some papers taken out, but no papers returned to date. We've learned that I should also point out, probably important to note, that Ramona will not be running again, she's indicated, and Beverly is not going to run again. So we know of 2 that intend not to run, so it's maybe a good thing to mention if you know of people that might be interested in service.
Try. So there has been some people come in and take some.
Yes, for council positions, yes. But I haven't had anybody for budget and budgeting, and I haven't had anybody from RSU.
Not Laurie or Tom?
Laura's not going to run,
And Tom?
and I have not heard from Tom.
He knows that he has to do that, right, where he's a new person on that, does he know the drill?
Well,
Especially
you know,
where, he came in halfway through this.
you might not,
Yeah.
I'll be happy to give him a call in the morning, just to email him and tell
If you
him.
don't mind.
Because he didn't do that before, he was appointed.
He was appointed, that's right, and that's right, Denny, he might not know the drill. Yeah, I'll do that.
Sorry about that, Pete, thank you.
No, that's fine, that's probably a very important conversation. You have in your materials the assessor's report for the months of June and July. And in that discussion, she talks about the outcome on the Summit Natural Gas assessing situation that had been mentioned to you previously. And the assessors in this area had been meeting jointly, and there was a determination made that there was some value in having the same rate schedules applied across the area, even though the amount of footage of pipe in each community is different. So they selected the Marshall and Swift Commercial Cost Valuation Service, nationally recognized in coming up with valuation. Pretty easy to defend if challenged, as is generally used throughout the country. So with that, and with the length of pipe, the diameter of the pipe, characterized by Summit, she was able to assess $6,059,900 in value, with a tax amount of $89,383.53. That's probably
And there's been no pushback from Summit or anything on
Not
that
to date.
value and
Not-
price?
not to date.
Yeah.
And the first tax we do this Friday.
The 15th, yeah.
And that would be them as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's what she
They ended up
indicated.
with the same due date.
Yep, she said they were gonna use the same due dates for Summit. I had that same question. There is a letter of thanks I thought you might be interested in from Thomas Nail. He lost some personal property, and it was recovered by Officer Mike Sayers. And he was so pleased to get the items back that he contributed $100 to the DARE fund. Not bad.
I assume.
I was mumbling into the telephone and I'm trying to speak up for the microphone. There is a letter in your packet from PERC, the incinerator in Orrington that burns the waste that we send up that way. And the letter is a follow-up to meetings that were held on the future up there. I attended the meeting on that. The one I went to was in Brewer. We sent John Thomas to the meeting that recapped some of that in Waterville. And so we've been to the meetings, and they're summing up here their intent to keep the PERC plant running after the contracts that they have for the purchase of the energy they produce run out in 2018. This letter came from PERC. There's also a municipal review committee made up of representatives from the communities that send waste to that plant. And they are working on alternative plans, I guess would be the best way to say it, for waste handling, so that all the eggs aren't in the one basket, subject to whatever fees come out of the revamped business relationship with PERC. So all of that remains to be seen, but we have representation from Josh Rennie, the Fairfield town manager on that committee, Sophie Wilson, who is the Orono city manager, and a number of others, but our municipal interests are at least being represented as they make plans. Some of them you've read about. There's talk of trying to establish a landfill of some kind up country to receive some of the material that's currently buried. And so stay tuned on that, because the MRC plans are very different from what PERC is talking about, but discussions are ongoing.
Did they say anything about the power part of it, Peter? Apparently their contract was for so long for the power, and that's coming to an end.
Yeah, and those were at artificial prices.
Right.
They were artificially high prices to the facility to encourage its construction 30 years ago,
Right.
or it will be 30 years ago, and for the communities to send waste there
Right.
at big tipping fees. So, and it was thought that by setting those prices that way, they could make all this stuff happen that the state of Maine wanted to see at that time, which was to make it possible to close landfills.
Right.
That was the idea. So those 30-year contracts have, are about to expire, and the indications are they will not be renewed at those prices that are so far outside of what the market now is.
Does the legislature involved in this at all?
Yes,
So-
thank you for mentioning that, because the owners of the plant say it's fully paid for, it's operating very well, it's in good condition, continue to serve the public, but they're hopeful that the legislature will recognize that burning that stuff for energy is a higher priority than just landfilling it somewhere, even though landfilling may be cheaper. Environmentally better to get some power out of it before you dispose of ash instead of all this volume. So there was a bill in the legislature last session that would have basically got communities that don't participate to subsidize ones that do to keep those plants going as the statewide benefit. That bill failed. It's thought that another bill will come forward that attacks the problem a different way in the next session, and I think that will weigh heavily in what comes after that.
I know before the rates were quite high, like you said, to pay for building the plant and all that stuff, but it seems so they could be less than that now and still be profitable.
Those are all the things that are under review.
Yeah.
So that's a letter from PERC. I also wanted to tell you that Dan Bolduc retired Friday, and Boyd Snowden worked with him during the last week of his employment, and Boyd